The sun beat down mercilessly on the dried earth of Montana Territory as Blake Crawford rode toward his ranch, expecting nothing more than another day of hard work and solitude. But what he found instead would change everything he thought he knew about loneliness and second chances. His horse slowed as the fence line came into view, and Blake's eyes narrowed against the glare. Someone was there, working on his property. His hand instinctively moved toward the rifle at his side, but he stopped when he saw the figure more clearly. A woman, her dark hair tied back with a simple ribbon, was repairing the broken section of fence that had been nagging at him for weeks. She worked with practiced efficiency, her movements sure and steady as she twisted wire and secured posts. Blake dismounted slowly, his boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. The woman must have heard him because she turned, her hand still gripping the wire. She had a smudge of dirt on her cheek, and her simple brown dress was dusty from the work. Her eyes met his, and for a moment neither spoke. "I hope you do not mind the help," she said, her voice carrying a slight tremor that might have been nervousness or simply exhaustion from the labor. Blake stood there, hat in hand, trying to form words. It was July of 1876, and in all his 26 years, he had never come home to find a stranger mending his fence, let alone a woman who looked to be in her early 20s doing work most men would find challenging. "I mind the fact that I do not know who you are or why you are on my land," he said, though his tone was more curious than hostile. She set down the wire and wiped her hands on her apron. "My name is Olivia Lancaster. I have been traveling from Wyoming, and my wagon broke an axle about 2 miles back. I walked here hoping to find help, and when I saw your fence needed mending, I thought I might earn my keep while I waited for the owner to return." Blake studied her face, searching for signs of deception but finding only honest fatigue and something else, a kind of quiet determination that spoke of hard times survived. "You came from Wyoming on your own. My father died 3 months ago. Fever took him quick. I have been heading to Columbia, Montana. My mother's sister lives there, or at least she did 5 years back when we last heard from her. Columbia is another 40 miles northeast from here," Blake said, stepping closer to examine her work on the fence. She had done a fine job, better than he would have managed himself. "You know your way around ranch work. My father had a small spread outside of Cheyenne. I have been mending fences since I was old enough to hold pliers." There was pride in her voice, mixed with grief that was still fresh enough to catch in her throat. Blake looked back at her wagon, invisible from where they stood but clearly somewhere behind them, broken and useless. He knew what the right thing to do was, even if taking in a stranger went against every careful instinct he had developed over years of living alone. "My name is Blake Crawford. This is my ranch, such as it is. You are welcome to stay until we can get your wagon fixed or arrange transport to Columbia. I've got a spare room in the house." Olivia's shoulders relaxed slightly, though she still held herself with careful dignity. "I would be grateful for that, Mr. Crawford, and I will work for my board. I am not looking for charity. Did not figure you were, Miss Lancaster, seeing as you already started working before I even got home." The hint of a smile touched her lips, the first break in her serious expression. "Force of habit. My father always said idle hands make for an idle mind." Blake picked up her bag from where it sat by the fence post. It was lighter than he expected, and that told him more about her circumstances than words could. She had left Wyoming with almost nothing, heading toward an aunt who might not even be alive, let alone still in Columbia. They walked toward the house together, a simple structure Blake had built himself over the course of 2 summers. It was not much, but it was solid and kept out the worst of the weather. The ranch itself was modest, 200 acres that he had been working for 4 years, ever since he had saved enough money from his time as a ranch hand to buy the land. "It is not fancy," Blake said as they approached the wooden steps leading to the porch. "It is standing straight and has a good roof." "That is more than fancy, that is practical," Olivia replied. Inside, the house was clean but sparse. A main room served as kitchen and living space, with a stone fireplace taking up most of one wall. 2 doors led to the bedrooms and a third opened to a small storage area. "The room on the left is yours," Blake said, setting her bag down carefully. "There is a basin and pitcher for washing. I will bring in some fresh water from the well." Olivia nodded, her eyes taking in the space with an appraising look. "You keep a tidy house, Mr. Crawford." "Blake, and I suppose I do. Not much point in surviving the elements just to live in squalor." She smiled again, more fully this time. "My father used to say something similar." "You would have liked him." The way she spoke of her father, present tense slipping to past tense and back again, told Blake that she was still adjusting to his absence. He knew that particular pain. His own parents had died when he was 19, a winter illness that took them both within a week of each other. "I will let you get settled. There is stew from last night I can heat up for supper." "Let me do that," Olivia said quickly. "You must have work to attend to, and I meant what I said about earning my keep." Blake wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. She needed to feel useful, needed to contribute. He understood that too. "All right. I will see to the horses and check the rest of the fence line. Should be back before dark." He left her there, feeling strange about having another person in his house after so many years of solitude. The sensation was not entirely unpleasant, just unfamiliar, like breaking in a new pair of boots. The rest of the afternoon passed in routine work, but Blake found his mind wandering back to the house more often than usual. He wondered what Olivia was doing, whether she was comfortable, whether he should have stayed to talk more, or if giving her space was the right choice. When he returned as the sun was setting, the smell of cooking food greeted him before he even reached the door. Inside, Olivia had not only heated the stew but had added to it, somehow coaxing more flavor from the simple ingredients. The table was set, and she had found his meager supply of bread and sliced it neatly. "You did not have to go to all this trouble," Blake said, removing his hat and hanging it on the peg by the door. "It is no trouble. Besides, I found your vegetable garden out back. You have some fine carrots and onions coming in. I added a few to the stew. Hope that is all right." "More than all right. I usually just eat to stay alive. This actually smells like something worth sitting down for." They ate together as the light faded outside, falling into an easy conversation that surprised them both. Olivia told him more about her father's ranch, about the years of drought and hard winters that had slowly worn them down. She spoke of her mother, who had died when Olivia was 12, and how she and her father had managed alone until the fever took him. Blake shared his own story, though he was less practiced at telling it. He spoke of working other men's ranches for years, saving every penny he could spare. He told her about finding this land and knowing somehow that it was meant to be his. He did not mention the loneliness, but it hung in the spaces between his words. "You have built something good here," Olivia said, looking around the room. "You should be proud. It is a start. Still a long way from where I want it to be. The best things take time." They cleaned up together after supper, moving around the small kitchen with an ease that felt both strange and natural. When the work was done, Olivia excused herself to her room and Blake sat by the fire, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of another person in the house. The next morning, Blake woke before dawn as usual, but when he emerged from his room, he found Olivia already in the kitchen, making coffee. She was wearing the same dress as yesterday, and he realized it might be the only one she had. "You are up early," he said. "Ranch habits. They do not leave you just because the ranch is gone." They shared breakfast, and then Blake headed out to his work. He expected Olivia to stay at the house, but when he looked back, she was following him, carrying a bucket and tools. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Working. You have fences to mend, and I have hands that know how to mend them." "Miss Lancaster, you are a guest here." "Olivia. And I told you I work for my keep. Now, are we going to stand here arguing, or are we going to get something done?" Blake could not help but smile. "You are a stubborn woman, Olivia Lancaster. And you are a stubborn man, Blake Crawford. I suppose we will just have to manage." They worked together through the morning, and Blake found himself impressed by her skill and stamina. She did not complain about the heat or the hard labor. She simply worked, steady and focused, occasionally asking questions about his plans for the ranch. By midday, they had repaired 3 sections of fence that Blake had been putting off for weeks. They sat in the shade of a cottonwood tree, sharing water from a canteen and bread Olivia had packed. "You have a good piece of land here," she said, looking out over the rolling grassland. "Good water, decent grazing. You could build this into something substantial." "That is the plan. Hoping to increase the herd next spring, maybe build a proper barn before winter." "You have enough hay put by, working on it. It is slow going alone." Olivia was quiet for a moment, and Blake wondered if he had said something wrong. Then she spoke, her voice soft. "It is strange, is it not, how quickly life can change? A month ago, I was worried about getting through another winter in Wyoming. Now I am sitting under a tree in Montana, talking about hay stores with a man I just met yesterday. Life has a way of taking unexpected turns." "Do you believe in fate, Blake?" He considered the question seriously. "I believe in hard work and making the most of what comes your way. Whether that is fate or just circumstance, I cannot say. My mother believed in fate. She used to say that every person we meet is meant to teach us something if we are wise enough to listen." "What do you think I am meant to teach you?" Olivia smiled. "I think it is too soon to tell. But I know what my broken wagon axle taught me." "What is that?" "That sometimes the worst luck can lead to the best fortune." They returned to work after that, but something had shifted between them. The conversation had opened a door, and they both felt it, though neither would have known how to name it yet. That evening, after another shared meal, Blake brought up the subject he had been avoiding. "I will ride into town tomorrow, see about getting your wagon fixed. Might take a few days to get the parts, but the blacksmith should be able to handle it." Olivia's face fell slightly, though she tried to hide it. "Of course, that is kind of you. Unless," Blake heard himself say, surprising himself with the words, "you wanted to stay on a bit longer. I could use the help, and the truth is, it is nice having someone to talk to." Her eyes met his, searching his face. "Are you offering me work, Blake Crawford?" "I suppose I am. Room and board plus a fair wage, at least until you decide what you want to do about Columbia and your aunt." "I should go to my aunt. That was always the plan. Plans can change, and she will still be there next month or the month after if she is there at all." Olivia was quiet for a long moment, and Blake wondered if he had overstepped, but then she nodded slowly. "All right, I will stay for a while. But I will earn every penny you pay me." I would not expect anything less. The days that followed fell into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. They rose with the sun and worked until dark, taking breaks when the heat grew too intense. Blake found himself looking forward to their conversations, to the sound of her laughter when he said something unexpectedly funny, to the way she challenged his ideas and made him think about things differently. Olivia proved herself invaluable on the ranch. She could rope and ride as well as any hand Blake had ever worked with. She helped him move the cattle to better grazing, mended tack, and even assisted with shoeing the horses. In the evenings, she worked on improving the house, mending curtains and making the space feel more like a home than just a place to sleep. 3 weeks into her stay, Blake rode into the nearby town of Billings to pick up supplies. The general store owner, a weathered man named Henry Walsh, raised his eyebrows when Blake ordered twice his usual amount of food. "Got company out at your place, Crawford. Got a ranch hand helping out," Blake said, keeping his voice neutral. "A hand. Heard tell there was a woman living out there with you." Blake met the man's eyes steadily. "Miss Lancaster is working for room and board while she decides on her next move. Her father died, and she was heading to family when her wagon broke down. That the whole story?" "That is all the story you need to concern yourself with, Henry." The store owner held up his hands. "No offense meant, just curious is all. You have been on your own out there for years. Folks talk. Let them talk. I know the truth of the situation, and so does Miss Lancaster. That is all that matters." But as Blake rode home, he found himself thinking about what people might say. It was 1876, and while the West was more forgiving of unconventional arrangements than the settled East, a man and woman living alone together without being married was still cause for gossip. When he got home and saw Olivia in the garden, her face lit by the late afternoon sun, he realized something that both thrilled and terrified him. He did not want her to leave. Not in a month, not ever. Somewhere between mending fences and sharing meals, between working side by side and talking long into the evening, he had fallen in love with her. That night after supper, Olivia brought up the subject of Columbia again. "I have been thinking," she said, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. "I should probably send a letter to my aunt, let her know I am all right." "That is a good idea," Blake said, though his heart sank at the words. "The thing is, I am not sure what to tell her, whether I am coming or staying or what my plans are." Blake looked at her across the table, at the way the firelight caught in her dark hair, at the strength and kindness in her face. He had never been good with words, had always been a man of action rather than speeches. But this moment called for words, and he had to find them. "What do you want to do, Olivia?" She met his eyes, and he saw his own feelings reflected there. "I want to stay. Here, I mean, on the ranch, if that is all right with you." "It is more than all right. Truth is, I cannot imagine this place without you anymore." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Olivia set down her cup carefully. "Blake, what are we doing here? Because if I stay, people will talk. They already are, I would wager. Let them talk. It is not that simple. My reputation, your reputation. It matters, even out here." Blake stood and crossed to where she sat. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hand in his. "Then marry me. Stay here as my wife, not just my ranch hand. Build this place with me, make it ours instead of just mine." Olivia's breath caught. "Blake, we have only known each other for 3 weeks. I know. It is fast, maybe too fast, but I also know that I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. I know that I wake up happy because I know I will see you. I know that everything I do, I find myself thinking about how it will affect you, how you will feel about it. If that is not enough to build on, I do not know what is." Tears slipped down Olivia's cheeks, but she was smiling. "I feel the same way. I have been trying to talk myself out of it, telling myself it is just gratitude or loneliness or anything other than what it actually is." "And what is it actually?" "Love. I love you, Blake Crawford. I think I started falling for you the moment you did not shoot me for mending your fence without permission." Blake laughed, a sound of pure joy. "That was your first test and you passed. So is that a yes? Will you marry me?" "Yes. Yes, I will marry you." He pulled her to her feet and kissed her, gentle at first and then with growing passion. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "We should do it soon," Olivia said, "before I lose my nerve or wake up and find out this is all a dream. Tomorrow. We will ride into Billings tomorrow and find a preacher." "Tomorrow," she agreed and kissed him again. They rode out at dawn the next morning, both dressed in their best clothes. Olivia wore a simple blue dress that she had been saving, and Blake had put on a clean shirt and his good vest. They reached Billings by mid-morning and went straight to the small church at the end of Main Street. The preacher, Reverend Thomas Stone, was a kind-faced man in his 50s who listened to their story without judgment. "You are sure about this?" he asked, looking from Blake to Olivia and back again. "Marriage is a serious commitment. We are sure," Blake said firmly. "More sure than we have been about anything," Olivia added. The Reverend smiled. "Then I will be happy to perform the ceremony. Do you have rings?" Blake's face fell. In his haste, he had not thought about rings, but Olivia squeezed his hand. "We do not need rings right now. We need each other and we need the blessing of this union. The rings can come later." "Very well. Let me find some witnesses and we will proceed." The ceremony was simple and quick, but no less meaningful for its brevity. 2 townspeople stood as witnesses, and within 20 minutes, Blake and Olivia were husband and wife. Blake paid the reverend and thanked him, then led Olivia outside into the bright Montana sunshine. "How do you feel, Mrs. Crawford?" he asked, unable to stop smiling. "Like the luckiest woman alive, Mr. Crawford." They celebrated with a meal at the town's only restaurant, a modest affair but the finest either of them had eaten in months. Other diners stared, and Blake knew the gossip would spread quickly, but he did not care. Let them talk. He had married the woman he loved, and that was all that mattered. On the ride home, Olivia leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "I keep thinking about how different things might have been if my wagon axle had not broken right where it did. If I had made it another few miles or broken down earlier, we might never have met. But it did break right where it did, and we did meet. That is what counts." "Do you think my father is looking down on this, approving or disapproving?" Blake thought about that. "I think if your father raised you to be the woman you are, strong and capable and kind, then he would want you to be happy. Are you happy?" "Happier than I ever thought I could be again after he died. You brought me back to life, Blake. You did the same for me. I did not even realize I was just existing until you showed me what living could be." That night, they came together as husband and wife, their love expressed in tender touches and whispered promises. Blake had never known such intimacy, such complete connection with another person. Afterward, they lay in each other's arms, talking about their dreams for the ranch, for their future together. "I want to build you a bigger house," Blake said, "with a proper kitchen and maybe a room we could use for a parlor. I want to help you expand the herd, make this ranch profitable enough that we never have to worry about lean times. I want to give you children if you want them." Olivia turned to look at him in the moonlight streaming through the window. "I want that too. A family, a real home, all of it." "Then we will have it, all of it, together." The months that followed were the happiest of Blake's life. He and Olivia worked together to improve the ranch, and with both of them laboring from dawn to dusk, they accomplished more than he ever had alone. They expanded the herd, repaired the outbuildings, and started planning the new house Blake had promised. In October, Olivia realized she was pregnant. She told Blake one evening after supper, watching his face carefully for his reaction. He was silent for a moment, then swept her into his arms, spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We are going to be parents," he said, wonder in his voice. "In the spring, near as I can figure. Are you happy?" Happy does not even begin to cover it. They spent the winter preparing for the baby, making plans and dreaming about the future. Blake worked on building a cradle from good pine wood, sanding it smooth and carving simple designs into the headboard. Olivia sewed clothes and blankets, her hands always busy. The baby came on a warm April morning in 1877, after a long night of labor. Blake rode for the doctor in Billings, but the baby arrived before they could get back. Olivia delivered with the help of a neighboring ranch woman, Martha Jenkins, who had come to check on them and ended up staying for the birth. When Blake finally arrived with the doctor, he found Olivia tired but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Blake approached slowly, almost afraid to breathe. He looked down at the red, wrinkled face of his newborn son and felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. "He is perfect," Blake whispered. "We should name him after your father," Olivia said. Blake's father had been named Benjamin, and they decided to call their son Benjamin James Crawford, the James for Olivia's father. Little Benjamin proved to be a healthy, hungry baby who rarely slept and always seemed to be making noise of some kind. "He has got strong lungs," Blake said one night as they took turns walking the floor with the crying infant. "He gets that from your side of the family," Olivia teased, even as she yawned. "How would you know? You never met my family." "Because you can holler across 3 acres when you need to move the cattle. That kind of volume is hereditary." Blake laughed and kissed her forehead. "Fair point." Life with a baby was exhausting but joyful. They adjusted their routines to accommodate Benjamin's needs, taking turns with the night feedings and finding ways to get their work done while caring for an infant. Martha Jenkins became a good friend, stopping by regularly to help and to share in the joy of watching Benjamin grow. By the time Benjamin was 6 months old, Blake had begun work on the new house. It was a bigger project than he had originally planned, a proper 2-story structure with 4 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a parlor. He worked on it whenever he could spare time from the ranch work, and Olivia helped when she could, with Benjamin strapped to her back in a sling. "We are going to need all these bedrooms," Olivia said one day, looking at the frame taking shape. "You think so?" "I do. I hope so anyway. I always wanted a big family." Blake smiled and pulled her close, careful not to squish Benjamin between them. "Then a big family we will have." The new house was completed in the fall of 1878, and they moved in just before the first snow. It was a proud moment for Blake, carrying Olivia over the threshold of a home he had built with his own hands for the family they were creating together. That winter was harsh, with heavy snows and bitter cold, but the new house proved solid and warm. They spent long evenings by the fire, Benjamin playing on a blanket while Blake and Olivia talked about the coming spring and their plans for the ranch. In March of 1879, Olivia told Blake she was pregnant again. This time, the news was expected but no less joyful. Their second child, a daughter they named Clara Rose, was born in October of that year. She was a quieter baby than Benjamin had been, more content to observe the world around her with solemn dark eyes. "She looks like you," Blake said, holding his daughter and marveling at her tiny fingers. "She has your eyes," Olivia replied, "and your serious expression when you are thinking hard about something." The ranch continued to prosper. With the cattle market strong and their herd growing, Blake and Olivia were able to hire 2 ranch hands to help with the work. This freed up more time for them to focus on their growing family and on improvements to the property. In the summer of 1880, a letter finally arrived from Olivia's aunt in Columbia. She had written to her years before, explaining what had happened and where she was now. The aunt, whose name was Margaret, expressed joy at hearing that Olivia was alive and well, and invited the whole family to visit. They made the trip in August, traveling by wagon with 2-year-old Benjamin and baby Clara. Columbia was a small but growing town, and Aunt Margaret turned out to be a warm, welcoming woman in her 60s who wept with joy at seeing her niece again. "I grieved when I heard about your father," Margaret said, holding Olivia's hands. "He was a good man, my brother-in-law. But I can see he raised a strong, capable daughter, and you have made a good life for yourself." "I have been blessed," Olivia said, looking at Blake and their children. "More than I ever expected." They spent 3 days in Columbia, and Blake could see that it meant everything to Olivia to reconnect with her family. But when it was time to leave, she showed no hesitation about returning to the ranch. "That is not my home," she told Blake as they drove away. "It is where my family history is, and I am glad we came, but home is where you are. Home is our ranch, our house, our life together. I love you, Olivia Crawford." "I love you too, Blake Crawford, more every day." The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. They had 2 more children, a son named William in 1882 and another daughter named Sarah in 1885. The ranch grew into one of the most successful in the region, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Benjamin grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved working with the horses. Clara was more adventurous, always exploring and getting into mischief. William was the charmer, able to talk his way out of trouble with a smile. And Sarah, the baby, was a perfect blend of all her siblings, serious and adventurous and charming all at once. Blake and Olivia watched their children grow with pride and wonder. On quiet evenings, after the children were in bed, they would sit together on the porch of the house Blake had built, looking out over the land they had worked so hard to cultivate. "Do you ever think about that day I found you mending the fence?" Blake asked one such evening in the summer of 1890. Olivia smiled. "All the time. Best day of my life, even though I did not know it then. You were so determined, so proud." "I think I started falling in love with you right then, even though I did not realize it." "I was terrified," Olivia admitted. "I had no idea how you would react, finding a stranger working on your property. But something in your eyes told me you were a good man, someone I could trust." "We have built a good life together, have we not? The best life. Better than I ever dreamed possible when I was walking down that road with a broken wagon and no clear future." Blake took her hand, his thumb tracing the simple gold band he had bought for her a month after their wedding. "I would not change a single thing. Not even my stubbornness, especially not your stubbornness. Where would we be without it?" They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling in for the night. Inside the house, their 4 children slept safely in their beds. Around them, the land they had built together stretched out in all directions, a testament to hard work and shared dreams. As the years continued to pass, Blake and Olivia faced the challenges that all couples face. There were hard winters and dry summers, sick cattle and broken equipment, disagreements and difficult decisions. But through it all, they faced everything together, their love growing stronger with each passing year. Benjamin grew up to become a skilled horseman and helped manage the ranch alongside his father. Clara married a neighboring rancher's son and started her own family nearby. William decided to study veterinary medicine and returned to the area to set up a practice, serving the local ranchers. Sarah, the youngest, proved to have a gift for business and took over the ranch's financial management. As Blake and Olivia grew older, they gradually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the ranch, trusting their children to carry on the legacy they had built. They spent their time traveling occasionally, visiting their growing brood of grandchildren and enjoying the fruits of decades of hard labor. On a warm summer evening in 1905, Blake and Olivia sat together on their porch, much as they had countless times before. They were both in their 50s now, their hair gray and their faces lined with the marks of a life well lived. 29 years, Blake said, counting back to that day in 1876 when he had found a woman mending his fence. 29 wonderful years, Olivia agreed. And hopefully many more to come. Do you have any regrets? Olivia was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously as she always did. Not a one. Every choice I made, every turn I took led me to you and to this life. How could I regret any of it? I feel the same way. Finding you that day, it changed everything. You changed everything. We changed each other, made each other better. Blake stood and extended his hand to his wife. Dance with me. There is no music. We will make our own. Olivia laughed and took his hand, allowing him to pull her to her feet. They danced slowly in the twilight, moving to a rhythm only they could hear, surrounded by the land they had built together and the family they had created. Inside the house, their youngest daughter Sarah was preparing supper for them, insisting that they relax and let her take care of things. Through the windows, they could see her moving around the kitchen, humming as she worked. "We did good, did we not?" Blake said softly. "We did very good. 4 healthy children, a thriving ranch, a love that has lasted through everything life could throw at us. I would say we did better than good. I never thought I could be this happy. Before you, I did not even know what I was missing. I was the same. I thought my life was over when my father died, that I was just going through the motions until I could reach my aunt. But then my wagon broke down in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Fate, Blake said, remembering their conversation from so long ago. Fate, Olivia agreed. Or luck, or providence, or whatever you want to call it. All I know is that I am grateful for every single day. They continued to dance as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. The air was filled with the sounds of the ranch, cattle lowing in the distance, horses nickering in the barn, the gentle rustle of wind through the grass. This was their kingdom, built from nothing but hard work, determination, and love. This was the life they had chosen, the life they had fought for, the life they had created together from the moment Olivia had said, "I hope you do not mind the help." Blake had not minded the help. In fact, it had been the beginning of everything that mattered. As the years continued to roll forward, Blake and Olivia remained fixtures on the ranch, though they spent more time in rocking chairs on the porch and less time in saddles. They watched their grandchildren grow, shared wisdom earned through decades of experience, and continued to love each other with the same devotion they had felt from the beginning. When Blake turned 60 in 1910, the whole family gathered for a celebration. All 4 of their children were there with their spouses and children, filling the big house with laughter and love. As Blake looked around at the gathering, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "Quite a legacy you have built," his oldest son Benjamin said, raising a glass in toast. "We built it," Blake corrected, gesturing to Olivia. "None of this would exist without your mother. She is the heart of everything good in my life." Olivia blushed at the attention but smiled. "We built it together. That is what marriage is, what family is. Building something together that is greater than what either could accomplish alone." The celebration continued late into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. The grandchildren begged for stories of the old days, and Blake and Olivia obliged, recounting tales of building the ranch, of harsh winters and wild storms. Of the day Olivia had arrived mending a fence. "Tell us again how you met," little Margaret, Clara's daughter, begged. Olivia smiled and began the story that the family had heard many times but never tired of hearing. Well, your grandfather came riding home one hot summer day in 1876, expecting to find his ranch exactly as he had left it. But instead, he found a strange woman working on his fence. And I said, "I hope you do not mind the help," Blake continued, taking up the story. And your grandfather, being a practical man, asked who I was and why I was on his land. The children listened with rapt attention, even though they knew every word. It was a family legend, the foundation story of everything they knew and loved. As the evening wound down and families began to head home or to their rooms, Blake and Olivia found themselves alone on the porch once more. It was their favorite place, the spot where they had shared so many conversations, so many dreams, so many quiet moments of simple togetherness. 60 years old, Blake said wonderingly. How did that happen, one day at a time, same way everything happens? I am a lucky man, Olivia Crawford. We are both lucky, Blake Crawford. We found each other when we needed each other most, and we built something beautiful together. They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands as they had done for decades. The ranch stretched out around them, prosperous and peaceful. Their children and grandchildren were healthy and happy. Their love had endured every test and grown stronger with each passing year. The seasons continued to change, and Blake and Olivia aged gracefully together. They remained active well into their 60s and 70s, still taking walks around the property, still offering advice and guidance to their children and grandchildren, still deeply in love. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1916, their children threw them a grand celebration. Friends and neighbors came from miles around to honor the couple who had become pillars of the community. There were speeches and toasts, gifts and well wishes. Blake stood to say a few words, Olivia's hand clasped firmly in his. 40 years ago, I made the best decision of my life. I asked this remarkable woman to marry me, and somehow, miraculously, she said yes. Every day since then has been a gift. She has made me a better man, a better father, a better human being. I cannot imagine my life without her, and I thank God I never had to find out what that would be like. Olivia stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. Blake Crawford, you have been my rock, my partner, my greatest love. You took in a stranger who was mending your fence, and you gave her a home, a family, a purpose. You gave her everything. I love you more today than I did 40 years ago, and that is saying something, because I loved you quite a lot even then. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. It was a moment of pure joy, a celebration not just of a marriage but of a love story that had inspired everyone who knew them. As Blake and Olivia moved into their 80s, they slowed down considerably, but their minds remained sharp and their love remained constant. They spent their days in quieter pursuits, reading, talking, watching the ranch operate under the capable management of their children. Benjamin ran the ranch operations with the same dedication his father had shown. Clara was nearby with her own family, stopping by almost daily to check on her parents. William maintained his veterinary practice and made house calls to the ranch regularly. Sarah managed the business side of things, ensuring the ranch remained profitable and secure. In the spring of 1925, as Blake approached his 75th birthday, he fell ill. It was nothing dramatic, just a gradual slowing down, a tiredness that no amount of rest seemed to cure. The doctor confirmed what Blake already knew in his heart. He was simply wearing out, his body finally giving in to the decades of hard work and long years. Olivia rarely left his side during those final weeks. She sat by his bed, holding his hand, sharing memories and speaking of the life they had built together. No regrets, Blake asked her one afternoon, his voice weak but his eyes still bright. Not a single one, Olivia assured him. You gave me everything I ever needed and more than I ever dreamed of. I wish we had more time. We have had almost 50 years together. That is more than many people get, and they have been wonderful years, Blake, full and rich and beautiful. Promise me you will be all right. Promise me you will keep going, keep living. I promise. But you are not going anywhere yet, you stubborn man. You are going to fight this. Blake smiled weakly. I have fought a lot of things in my life, Olivia, but I think this is one battle I am going to lose. And I am all right with that, as long as I know you will be all right. I will miss you every single day for the rest of my life. And I will be waiting for you, wherever we go next. Mending fences, probably, waiting for you to show up and tell me you hope I do not mind the help. Olivia laughed through her tears. I will find you. No matter where you are, I will find you. Blake passed away peacefully 3 days later, surrounded by his wife and children. He was 75 years old and had lived a full, rich life. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched over the decades. Olivia grieved deeply but gracefully, finding comfort in her children and grandchildren, in the ranch that she and Blake had built together, in the memories of a love that had defined her life. She lived for another 8 years, remaining active and engaged with the ranch and her family. She told stories about Blake to anyone who would listen, keeping his memory alive and vibrant. She tended the fence where she had first met him, maintaining it carefully as a kind of monument to the day that had changed both their lives. In the summer of 1933, at the age of 80, Olivia fell ill with pneumonia. Her children gathered around her, just as they had for their father, offering comfort and love. On her last evening, as the sun set over the Montana landscape she had called home for nearly 6 decades, Olivia spoke her final words. Tell Blake I am coming. Tell him I hope he does not mind the help. She passed away peacefully in her sleep that night, and her children knew that she had found her way back to the man she had loved for almost 50 years. Blake and Olivia were buried side by side on a small hill overlooking the ranch, their graves marked with simple but elegant headstones. The ranch continued to thrive under the management of their children and grandchildren, a living legacy to the love and hard work of its founders. Years later, their great-grandchildren would walk the fence line where Olivia had first started mending, where Blake had first found her. They would hear the story of how their great-grandparents met, fell in love, and built a life together from nothing but determination, hard work, and unwavering devotion to each other. The house Blake had built still stood strong, sheltering new generations of the Crawford family. The land they had cultivated continued to prosper. But more than the physical legacy they left behind, Blake and Olivia had given their descendants something far more valuable. An example of what true love looked like, how it endured through hardship and joy, how it grew stronger with each passing year, how it built something lasting and beautiful. In the end, it had all started with a woman mending a fence, hoping the owner would not mind the help. That simple act of kindness and initiative had led to a love story that would be told and retold for generations. A reminder that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with the smallest, most unexpected steps. The Montana sun continued to rise and set over the Crawford ranch. The seasons continued to change, and the family continued to grow and thrive. But through it all, the spirit of Blake and Olivia remained, woven into the very fabric of the land they had loved, a testament to the enduring power of love, partnership, and the courage to say yes to an unexpected future. Their story became legend in those parts of Montana, told around dinner tables and campfires, a tale of frontier romance that reminded people of a time when life was hard, but love could make it beautiful. It reminded them that sometimes fate works in mysterious ways, that broken wagon axles and mended fences can lead to the greatest adventures of all. And so the Crawford Ranch stood as a monument not just to hard work and determination, but to the transformative power of love, to the magic that can happen when two people find each other at exactly the right moment and decide to build a life together. One fence post at a time, one shared meal at a time, one loving day at a time, until those days add up to a lifetime of joy and partnership and enduring devotion.